everybody. Welcome. Welcome back to the Cancer Conversation. I'm Dr. Roney. If you've been a viewer for a long time, welcome back. If you're new to the Cancer Conversation, I want to take the opportunity to welcome you. I'm here with Alan. I want to introduce Alan here. Alan is one of the, creators, inventors, engineers of the EBOO machine, which we're going to highlight today. So I'm getting hooked up. Tanner's with us here. Tanner's one of the great RNs that we have at the center. So he's going to be hooking me up. And we're going to show you start to finish the EBOO, which stands for extra blood, ozonation, and oxygenation.
Extracorporeal.
Yeah.
Blood oxygen.
Oh, Tanner corrected me. He said extracorporeal.
Yes.
Ozonation and oxygenation. And corporeal meaning?
It's outside the body. It's being treated. The blood being treated outside the body is extracorporeal.
All right.
Look it up.
Blood's being treated outside of the body.
That's right.
So I want to go over just briefly the 4 pillars, right? Because I think that's super important. I work with the patients every day, and I go over the 4 pillars and allow them to understand the treating philosophy. And then as I go through that, we'll discuss how the EBOO fits into the treating philosophy. So first and foremost, labs, right? The labs that we do are designed to create a more cookie cutter approach, or less cookie cutter approach. So we want to be more individualized and create that comprehensive, individualized, less cookie cutter approach. See, when I'm getting poked, I lose my train of thought. But so anyway, so the labs, like we do RGCC testing, which is going to allow us to find the circulating tumor cell activity in the body. And then also, it can also test for the natural agents that will be sensitive to those circulating tumor cells. Things like curcumin, resveratrol, things like that. And then also the chemo agents that may be, the cells may be most sensitive to. So as an example, we can do testing like that that is very specific to you and your cancer. And I think that's super important in the entire process. The other labs that we could do, things like nagalase, which is an enzyme that's secreted by the cancer cell, that if elevated, it basically blocks the immune system from attacking the cancer cell. So we want to know if that's elevated so we can start bringing that down. And we have protocols to do that. PHI is an example. If that's elevated, that tells us that the cells are more anaerobic, meaning a low oxygen state. So we would prescribe oxygen therapies in order to knock that down and create a more oxygenated environment, right? So that's just an example of some of the labs that we do that are more in depth than the general labs, so we can get a more individualized plan going, right? NutrEval test, a lot of you have had that if you've been at the clinic. That tests the vitamins and mineral content at the cellular level. It looks at, antioxidants and B vitamins, etc. So we could, looks at methylation and oxidative stress and so forth. So these are all tests that we implement that are just a little bit more in depth to create that individual approach. The second pillar is perhaps the most important, and it's the kill phase of cancer, right? So the kill phase could be anything from chemo, surgery, radiation. It could be fractionated chemo or low-dose chemo that we do here, immunotherapies, etc. And so depending on what's presented, meaning what your diagnosis is, the aggressiveness of the diagnosis, etc., would determine whether or not we recommend, along with your oncologist, chemo, surgery, radiation, fractionated chemo, whatever it might be. So pillar 2 becomes a very important step in the process. Now, what we talk about is that oftentimes pillar number 2, right, is, again, dependent upon the aggressiveness and the diagnosis, but we want to be thorough and even more on the conservative side, but we're not naive. And what I mean by that is there are patients that come here that have to do chemo, surgery, or radiation, and then we support them with our other adjunctive therapies. And let me explain. So pillar 3 would be the bio or immune boosting modalities, supplements, what have you. So we might use vitamin C, we may use mistletoe, we could use a number of different immune boosting therapies or IVs, as well as a lot of the supplements that could support the immune boosting. But we'll also oxygenate and alkalize the body. Cancer doesn't thrive in a high oxygen, high alkaline environment. So we want to reduce acidity and we want to increase oxygen. And EBOO is one of the ways that certainly we can do that. And then pillar 4 is where the EBOO comes in. Where pillar 4, we have to look at the causes. So remember, if I'm diagnosed with a chronic disease like cancer, and we're working on pillar 2, which is the kill phase, which is a very important phase, we don't want to neglect the fact that something or some things created that process of cellular division, abnormal cell division, right? We don't want to neglect the fact that there are causes that are in play. Those causes could be everything from the foods that we eat, our gut health, it could be chemicals and toxins, it could be heavy metals, it could be stress and the stress response and how that affects cortisol and the effect of that cortisol on immunosuppressing the immune system, acidity causing or increasing the acidity of the environment in the body, etc. So the point I'll make with pillar 4, it opens up a little bit of Pandora's box, but we certainly don't want to neglect what could have caused the cancer in the first place, right? So again, if we're looking conventionally, which chemosurgery radiation has its place, and it helps a lot of people, but it's one chapter of a 20-chapter book. There's 19 other chapters that can be implemented, like oxygenation, ozonation, like alkalization of the body, immune boosting, and then of course, figuring out and identifying the causes and working to remove those causes. Okay, so that's a review of the 4-pillar approach. From being here years, I could tell you if those 2 approaches are married, if needed, right, where we do the chemosurgery radiation and you do these other quote-unquote 19 chapters of the book, that's when you mitigate your downside significantly and you maximize your upside, right? Now again, here I'll mention briefly, instead of full dose chemo, we do what they call fractionated chemo, which is a percentage of the dose of chemo. And a lot of people opt to do that because it's less invasive and they have less side effects. So we offer that here, and a lot of people come here for that reason. Then with that, we just apply the other modalities and immune boosters and oxygenation and alkalization with that. And again, patients tend to do really well. It's this, that, and the other thing in today's world that allows people to heal from these chronic diseases like cancer, right? Now, having said that, the EBOO, let's talk about that because we want to talk about, again, toxins and chemicals and heavy metals and creating oxygen in the body and so forth. And the EBOO can do all that, correct?
That's right,
Alan?
That's right. Well, the EBOO, it's actually a technology that we have actually developed with a group of doctors and a lot of people that behind of this. We actually developed this system about almost 23 years ago. So we are the pioneer in this industry. We started this back in Malaysia. So we have done a lot of tests and we have done a lot of research on this. And we work on the system. We have actually developed this magnificent. We help many people around the world now. So what happened, this piece of equipment basically just regulates the blood outflow from your body, and then it actually infuses the ozone into your blood. So you can see that it actually does 2 things. The machine basically regulates the blood outflow and then produces the ozone to a certain amount of concentrations. That's what it does. And the filter actually does two things actually. When the blood enters inside the filter, it actually what happens is start to take large space inside the filter, and the filter is basically what happens after that. More ozone saturations will take place with the blood. So activation and saturations will take place, and then the blood actually get back to your system. So second important things that what we get, it also does a lot of filtering. So it actually filters a lot of bacteria and viruses, certain degrees. It filters heavy metals. It filters uremic toxin, and it also filters a lot of lipid particles, some proteins, anything that travels in your blood, which is not really needed. So this is what happens. So activations, filtrations, when it gets back to your system, the activated blood will start to give a lot of improvements in your system, and it just started to deliver every part of your cell, and then the cell will start to get into a stage we call lipid oxidation product, which is activated system that actually can start to stimulate a lot of enzyme for your cell to be able to produce a lot of antioxidant naturally by itself.
So as you see on my left arm, we have blood that's being taken out of my arm, correct?
That's right.
All right, so the blood's going out of my arm and going up into the system, right, into the EBU.
Into the EBU.
So
enclosed, secure.
Deoxygenated blood, mind you.
Yeah.
Because this is coming from your venous system. It's not coming from your arteries. The blood that's in our veins is deoxygenated blood. So
low oxygenated blood, right, goes up into the machine. Now tell us what happens.
It then goes in through this pump.
Okay.
And the pump is set at a specific speed that is going to make it easy for us to pull blood from your arm. Once it goes through the pump, then it gets pushed into the bottom of the filter, and it saturates the filter from the bottom up. As blood is climbing in the filter and going through this, ozone is being pushed in through this line from top to bottom. So all the blood that's being pushed into this filter is getting saturated with ozone. And from what I understand, ozone actually binds to the polyunsaturated fatty acids that are in our bloodstream, and not binding necessarily to the hemoglobin like our lungs would do. Yep. So you actually get more of a saturation than you would from just breathing in air.
Right.
So
okay.
You get much more of an oxygenation saturation. And as you can tell, the difference in the lines is it becomes quite. It's really.
I don't know if you can see it, gang.
As,
but you have blood going out, very maroon, right? Blood going in, very red. Hopefully, you could see the difference there. So let's talk. I think it's important that. Yeah, sorry. So let's talk about this for a second, because as I discussed, or maybe I can't remember if I mentioned it, but we want to use the EBU for some big things. Number one, when somebody has antigens or foreign invaders, remember we talked about causes. Causes could be bacteria, viruses, like Epstein-Barr as an example. Lyme, right, is a biggie. And there's other bacterial infections, of course. And then how about, things like candida and mycotoxins or your mold infections, right? Things like that. So the EBU, because of the ozonation, right?
Yep.
Tell us how the ozone and the oxygen can kill those microorganisms.
As you all know, ozone is actually very reactive for oxygen, so that actually will be able to kill any bacteria and viruses instantly. So what happened now when the blood, usually what happened, all these bacteria and viruses will be in your blood. They will be traveling around. So what happened when it goes into the filter, they actually get exposed with ozone. So what happened, they actually get killed over there instantly. And then some certain degree of bacteria and viruses will be filtered. And now the ozone, when it's actually activated the blood actually now is going to pick up lots of ozones and gets back to your system. It actually stimulates a lot of immune system to fight against it. So most of the endotoxins will be able to filter before it gets back to your system.
Gotcha.
So in this case, and your body actually reduced a lot of load so that the body will be able to fight against it.
That activates your immune system.
That's right. It boosts the immune system and it activates a lot of healing pathways in your system. So it actually can correct and can actually make a lot of changes in your system. The most important thing, it's about the antioxidant productions. Your blood, ozonated blood, actually will be delivered to every part of your cell, and that stimulates enzymes. That enzymes is actually activating a lot of antioxidant productions in your body naturally by itself.
Okay, so let's repeat that. So ozone, number one, can kill pretty much instantly viruses and bacteria, right? So any viruses or bacteria that runs through, that's coming out of my blood right now, will then be exposed to ozone, right? The ozone itself will kill the viruses, the bacteria, some of these antigens, right? So I want to make sure that you understand that part of it, because that's important. A lot of our patients with chronic disease come in with viruses, bacteria, right? All these different microorganisms that are, remember this concept, if I have enough fuel stimulating the fire in my body, and the fire being inflammation in my immune system, what happens there is that inflammation creates something called free radicals, okay? Free radicals, not to get too nerdy, but free radicals are atoms that lose paired electrons. And when that happens, they become very unstable. And when they're unstable, that creates oxidative stress to the cell. And oxidative stress damages your DNA and your genomes of the cell. So if you have enough oxidative stress and enough damage to the DNA and the genomes, those DNA and genomes of the cell are supposed to take it through cell death or cause cell death. They're responsible for the cell, if it's damaged or all, dying. But that doesn't happen if there's enough free radical damage. Instead, the cell replicates, the damaged cell replicates out of control, and that's cancer. So backing up, we want to remove as many fuels to the inflammatory fire as possible, and those fuels can be bacteria, viruses, candidas, right? Mycotoxins, things like that. So the EBU and the ozone in the EBU can kill those pretty much instantly. Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, we have a lot of them circulating in our blood, so I want to make this point. About 3 liters roughly of blood,
Approximately about 1.8 liters to 3 liters of your blood will be circulated in 1 hour.
okay, so let me repeat. 1 hour, we get about 1.8 to 3 liters of blood, depending on somebody's flow,
Yeah.
right?
Because I've seen people, like right now, you're flowing really fast.
Yep.
And I think you would be doing more.
More than 3, yeah.
More than 3 liters.
More than 3.
Okay,
It depends also on the gauge of the IV catheter, I think, that we put in. But I think we're getting more.
okay.
Yeah. And it also depends on how much of lipid particle comes out, the viscosity of the blood. That plays important role on how much we actually can circulate, actually.
So the viscosity of the blood, the flow of the blood, things like that will be dependent upon how much is filtered and ozonated and oxygenated within an hour or so.
Yeah.
So the treatment's roughly, Tanner maybe took 15 minutes to hook me up, roughly.
Yeah.
20, what,
I think
longer,
it takes like
shorter?
Maybe 10 minutes to set up the machine.
Okay.
Maybe 15 minutes, and then starting your IVs another 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yep.
As long as I'm not poking you over and over.
Yeah. No, he's good. Tanner's good. So,
Thanks, Dr. Rob.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so with that, if we're killing off the viruses, the bacteria, and the point I was making, gang, is if we're filtering, say, up to 3 liters of blood, there's still viruses that are going to be, and bacteria that could be sitting in the system. We may not have gotten all 4 liters of blood in your body. So that's where it might take a few times to start killing these things off. Is that fair?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So
I say most people notice a difference when the third one happens. For whatever reason, the third one seems to be a magic number. A lot of people say that they notice a big difference in how they feel going into that point.
makes sense, because and again, I would think a variable is, say I have Epstein-Barr in my system, and I have a high load of Epstein-Barr, a high antibody load verified by labs. It's probably going to take a few more, just like anything, of these treatments to knock that load down.
Exactly.
Fair? So it's the aggressiveness of what's found as to the aggressiveness of the treatment.
Yeah, and everybody's different. Some people might respond a little better than others, or some people might respond really, really well, more than we expect. So
Right.
there's definitely that variable as well.
It's a play it by ear a little bit. And again, the labs help dictate all this. So
one thing that I have noticed is there's when Dr. Keneally or you have ordered PHI levels on people, those that have had elevated PHI levels, I've noticed this bringing their PHI levels down much more, even into normal range.
quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
So, I know cancer cells don't utilize oxygen, and they don't use it. So, if their PHI level is very elevated, it means that there's a lot of anaerobic metabolism that's happening inside their body.
Yep.
And by saturating their cells with excess oxygen, it creates an environment that cancer cells typically can't proliferate in. They can't grow it. So I think that's a really good lab that we could use going forward with this as well.
No question. And the doctors, if you're here, all the doctors, that's a standard lab for us.
Okay, great.
And when I mentioned earlier in the Pillar 1, which are the labs, I mentioned the RGCC as an example. I mentioned Nagalase, and I mentioned PHI. So that PHI, if it's up, it tells us that your cancer cells are working in an anaerobic environment.
Yeah, your body's usually it's not perfusing the systems as well as it used to when we were little.
Which is why the EBU is important. So I'll talk to Alan and ask him this question a little later as far as EBU compared to, say, hyperbaric, these oxygen therapies are very important, and they're all relative, but I think the EBU, from what I've seen, from what I know and what I understand, I think it's one of the best tools on the market out there in general for doing what it needs to do. But that's what I wanted to get into. So what Alan was saying is when ozone is utilized by the body,
Yep.
antioxidants are formed, right?
That's right.
If your cells are oxidatively stressed, which means, remember that free radical, there's too many free radicals, the cells become oxidatively stressed. If you've had the NutriVal, you know what that means because I go over that with you. And it means that you're low on antioxidants, which are things like vitamin A and vitamin C and E and CoQ10 and alpha lipoic acid, etc. Right? The point that I'll make is, though, you were telling me earlier, Alan, that the cells, they don't thrive.
Yep.
Right? So explain.
So what happens usually when your cell is going through a lot of stress, this is called oxidative stress, and it will not be able to produce sufficient amount of enzyme, which is the enzyme that's supposed to be stimulating a lot of antioxidant by your own cell. So that actually is going to be a big problem, and eventually your stress is going to go through a lot of stress, and then it's going to give up. It's not able to function well. Then the mitochondria are pretty much gone. So that it's going to be end up in trouble.
Yeah. So real quick, that the mitochondria that Alan mentioned, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. You have to have that functioning well in order for the cell to thrive and to produce energy at the cellular level.
That's right.
So if we don't have that working well, and we have this mitochondria dysfunction because of these free radicals, right, and oxidative stress.
It's something like you have so much things to do at home or at work, but if your brain is too busy with a lot of things and you are too stressed, you will not be able to function well. You will not be able to do your job properly. That's how it's supposed to be, and it goes into a cellular level. If you have so much things to burn in and so much things to stimulate, but you are going through a lot of stress, the cell will not be able to function well. That's where all the decline starts, basically. You know, we have like 50 trillion cells that actually lives in our body, and each and every cell needs oxygen and needs proper fuel, and they need to burn it and they need to produce waste, and after that your cell need to produce antioxidant by itself to reverse the oxidative stress. If it's your body filled with a lot of foreign agents like
chemicals,
toxins, chemicals and
infections,
everything,
right.
so that is actually going to trigger a lot of free radicals in your system. And if your cell could not able to produce the natural antioxidant, this is where the whole problem starts. But ozone, what happened actually, it actually saturates and delivers the oxygen to your cell, and then that actually stimulates a natural production of enzyme that actually can stimulate your ozone, can stimulate your antioxidant production.
Okay,
that's what we need. It's a natural process that we are triggering. We are pretty much like empowering yourself to heal itself naturally. We are not giving you any foreign agents or any support kind of things here. Your body knows how to fix. That's what we are giving it.
Yeah. So just to recap, your body, your cells need antioxidants. That's how they're protected, right? But a damaged cell has more free radicals than antioxidants. Ozone naturally allows the cell or causes the cell to produce its own antioxidants.
That's right.
Now, let me just real quick, an antioxidant basically is going to, and let me back up. This is a little nerdy, but I think it'll make sense. When we have free radicals, they're atoms that lose paired electrons, okay? So those atoms become very unstable. And that's basically what rust is, right, on a bicycle. It's oxidative stress. So if I lose those electrons off an atom, that's a free radical. Antioxidants like vitamin C and E and alpha lipoic acid and glutathione and, resveratrol, curcumin, etc., they donate the electrons back to the atom and stabilize it. So ozone at the cellular level creates those natural antioxidants to counteract the damage at the cellular level. So that's proven. That's a
right.
proven mechanism. So not only does the ozone kill these microorganisms, it actually supports the mitochondria of the cell. And if you've been with me, at least lately, I'm big. I've been doing a lot of research on longevity. They use the term longevity, right? But the reality is longevity means that your cells are being protected so they last longer, right? And they're healthier, so there's less damage to them. And they talk about stimulating these different adversity genes that are going to help it. Heat does that, and fasting does that, and cold plunges do that. But also keeping your antioxidant level high so your free radical damage low is a key component to cellular health and anti-disease. Forget about anti-aging. It's really about anti-disease. And that's what ozone, the impact on the body with ozone. Now, do a quick comparison. As far as this machine compared to other ozone machines,
Yep.
Tell me the difference, Alan.
Well, as you know that this machine, there's so many modalities in ozone available. It's like O2 hemotherapy, major O2 hemotherapy, insufflations, and there's so many modalities.
Yeah, a lot of modalities.
So EBU is one of the highest efficacy of ozone saturations in your blood. It actually delivers a lot of ozone to your cellular level and without giving you impact in terms like hemolysis and all that. So it also has to be a therapeutic amount of ozone concentration that you have to give. So there are a lot in market actually now. There's a lot of version of market which is also we are a pioneer. The people are started to get into looking at how to reinvent the things. But be careful. This is the pioneer, and we have been keep developing a lot of modalities. Like so, EBU is the level 1 considered to be, and we have level 2. We call it safe, which you can get it in.
Thank you, Richard.
Which is another level. Actually, you can have better ozone modalities as well. So when you look at 10 parts, you have to do 10 times. And actually what happens without filtration, it's going to create a lot of hugs. But this one, it's with the filtration, it actually can remove a lot of proteins and everything that actually can trigger inflammations.
So I'll repeat that. Just
More likely to get hertz.
Yeah, so a 10-pass ozone, for example, I want to do some comparison. 10-pass, you have to, it's out, in,
One arm.
one arm. And what Alan was saying is there's a lot of Herx reaction. Herx is the liver's not able to clear between phase 1 and phase 2. So a lot of these toxins build up, a lot of oxidative stress to the cell, and the immune system reacts to that. And then it creates everything from headaches to nausea to fatigue, and that's a Herx reaction, okay? So because the ozone, or the EBU, has the filtration system, it helps filtrate or filter a lot of the toxins out of the blood, and the toxins out of the blood, so you don't get the Herx reaction. So that's good.
I know one big question is that you guys get is the lymph nodes.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
I talked to you guys about that because a lot of patients that have had breast cancer have had lymph nodes removed.
Yep.
And I know that I have done it. I have done EBU on patients who have had lymph nodes removed. The only time that I have done it is I've made sure that the side that my inflow is coming in, that is the side that I would want. Like if you had lymph nodes removed on this side, we would be doing it right. If you have lymph nodes removed on this side, and I keep this tourniquet on, that could cause some lymphedema. It's not what we want. So if a patient has had lymph nodes removed, we could do it just as long as it's not all of them. If they did have all of them removed and it was recent or something like that, we could use your legs. So that is an avenue that we'd be able to utilize.
Good point. So lymph node removal can be a contraindication, to your point. However, it depends on the number of lymph nodes, and then it also depends on, the number, and then we can use different areas. Yeah. We can use your lower extremities. So it's a contraindication potentially, but there's ways around it. Right. Is that a good point?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so...
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that.
No, I love it. I think it's imperative. So let's talk about this. I wanted to cover toxins and especially heavy metals, Alan, because there's a protocol here, and I'm actually going to go through it. And I'll tell you a quick story. I think I told you this maybe if you've been on before, but about a year and a half ago, COVID really kicked my tail. I mean, it beat me up pretty good. Which is, I still can't figure it out because I think, as you know, if you've been on here, I eat really well. I've exercised my whole life, pretty hardcore. I take my supplements. I do my gut health. I mean, I'm all in on a lot of this, just like you all are, and I practice what I preach. So when I got COVID, it really affected me, not from the neck down or the chest or anything like that. It affected my head. I had vertigo for about 10 days. I had migraines after that, and then after COVID, I just did not feel well for a long time. I had a lot of extra inflammation, etc. So I did the EBOO, and it really helped out significantly, literally within a day. So, and I want to explain a little bit of that process and why Alan, he told me earlier why it's helpful and what it did. But then I also, about maybe 6 to 8 weeks ago, got it again. And it was lighter, but it affected my head. I had a runny nose for 2 weeks, like ridiculous amount of time that it's affecting me. And then since then, but even over the last year and a half, I've had extra inflammation in my body. So my workouts are tougher. You know, I've got some knee pain that I've never had. Just my body doesn't feel the same as pre-COVID. So the point that I want to make with that is a lot of times these spike proteins, whether it's COVID or from maybe the vaccinations or whatever it might be, these can create extra inflammation if they're sitting on the cell. So basically those proteins sit on the cell and the immune system is triggered by those proteins. So I can't prove this, but I personally think that's what's going on in my body, right? So
cytokine storm.
The cytokine storm. So what that is, so Alan said the cytokine storm. If I have enough fuel in my fire, right, which I talked about, fuel could be infections like Epstein-Barr or COVID or whatever it is. If I have enough of those fuels, then I'm going to have more inflammation or cytokine storm. So the point I'll make is I think this virus is still sitting in my system a bit. I think there might be some of the spike proteins that are sitting on the cell, and they're creating an extra inflammatory or immune response, creating inflammation, right? So with that, what I want to do is I'm starting the process tonight. I'm going to do this EBOO, and then I'm going to do subsequent EBOOs with some other modalities mixed in. So let's talk about that because I want to explain what I'm going to do. Go ahead.
Okay. Basically, what happened now? I've actually suggested Dr. Ronnie is like he has to do EBOO first, and that actually going to activate a lot of healing pathways in his system. Eventually, then once he's ready for the next few days, he needs to do a chelation. Chelation, what happened is actually going to remove a lot of heavy metals. And then after that, within 24 hours, I suggested him to do a EBOO again. So that actually going to remove a lot of heavy metals that circulating in his system.
So EBOO, chelation, EBOO.
So that's going to improve. And after that, I asked him just whether he can do a B complex. That's going to improve a lot of circulations and actually going to supplement a lot of his nerves so that he can actually rebound back again, and then he started to do everything. I had a bad experience on injuries like that, long COVID and vaccine injuries. So I did this, and it's actually improved within a day. So I'm okay. But some patients will have a different kind of way of adapting to treatments, and it may be 2 treatments for me, or maybe can be more than to other people's actually.
Yeah. Yeah, so there is a protocol, especially for heavy metals and for these viruses and such. But it's an EBOO, and then it's chelation, then an EBOO, chelation, and then finally an EBOO, right?
Yep.
So 3 EBOOs, 2 chelations, and that does really well with heavy metals. Now there's also protocols I'll send patients over for, say, the mycotoxins. Yep. Like, so we do, one of the tests we do in the Pillar 4 is a vibrant wellness test. It's heavy metals, non-metal toxins, 200 non-metal toxins, 20 heavy metals, and then over 40 to 50 mycotoxins, which are toxins from mold exposure, say water damaged buildings, right? So if we send them over here and we do an EBOO and we put them on a protocol,
yep.
Tell us as far as the filtration, the oxygenation, and the ozonation, and tell us how that helps.
Well, what happened now when you do EBOO, right? It actually stimulates a lot of healing pathways in the system, and subsequently when you do chelation, you basically are trying to clean up a lot of heavy metals in the system. The heavy metals basically it starts in a cellular level. That's actually triggering a lot of oxidative stress. If you're going to keep a lot of unwanted debris in a system and you're trying to stimulate, it won't really take up and then fight for, get stimulated for more healing, right? So when you do chelation, what happens, chelations actually remove a lot of heavy metals, and it actually starts to come to your bloodstream and circulating in the bloodstream. So it
moves from the tissue,
that's right,
into the bloodstream,
and then it gets excreted through your urine, through your feces, or even your sweat.
Yeah.
But there will be a lot of heavy metals still circulating in your blood. before it gets settled down, so what we do, we actually suggest to do EBU. So EBU, basically what happened, it filters certain degrees of heavy metals, which we have tested the liquid waste, what we have discovered from patients. There is a lot of heavy metals that are actually in, and we have sent the lab test, and we have sent this waste actually to an independent lab test to find out whether it's, yes, confirmed we have a lot of heavy metal.
Yeah.
Yes, it happens. So from there, and then the following treatment will be EBU again. So EBU, basically what happened, anything that's circulated, then it's actually been activated. Again, another cycle we go, another chelations, and then another EBU again. So basically we are stimulating, removing, and stimulates back again.
Yeah, so repeating, basically the EBU sets the system up,
Yep.
right? The chelation pulls the heavy metals from the tissue into the blood. Then the EBU then clears them.
That's right.
Simple.
And
right? Keep it
also
simple.
clears them and also activate the more healing pathways.
Yeah, and then as Alan said, it activates those. The ozone activates basically the cell to be able to heal better.
Yeah.
Right. So it's right. EBU, clear the heavy metals, or get the heavy metals from the tissues into the blood via chelation.
Right. Yeah, because chelation is going to make your cells exude those metals into your bloodstream.
Right.
Once they're in your bloodstream, it's like it's an alley-oop
Yeah.
basketball. We're kind of setting it up for us to kind of clean
Come
it
in,
out at
yeah.
that point. At least that's what I see it as. When it comes to the fungus or the mycotoxins, like you were saying, I believe that ozone breaks up biofilm really well.
That's
and
right.
So that's why I have seen in the filter that it's saturated with this yellow gunk. And a lot of patients that have had mold, and people who didn't even know that they had any issues going on, that were just doing it for optimization, for health optimization reasons. I've seen that filter look really bad sometimes.
See,
So,
kind of not only we are killing the impurities in the blood, like bacteria and viruses, even mold. Again, if your body could not able to fight back again this type of infections, it will regrow back again. So now ozone actually will stimulate your immune system to fight against it. So we are not only killing, we are also stimulating your body to
So
fight
that's a good
against
point. So
mycotoxins have a good way of tricking our bodies into
right.
not utilizing our immune system as well as we were when we were little.
Right.
So definitely stimulating your immune system in a way that hasn't been before. I think that's why a lot of people feel pretty tired after
Yeah.
this. It's common for individuals to feel like they need a nap afterwards, and I believe that's our body's way of healing. When we're sick and we don't feel good, the main thing that we do is go lay down and go
tired.
rest. It's because
it's
that's
shutting down for healing.
Exactly. And so I think that's what happens here as well. Because many people feel kind of tired, just sleepy, not tired like they feel sick, but just tired as if they need a nap afterwards.
I did.
And
I definitely
yeah,
did. The first time I did it, I slept. I left here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I went to bed, didn't wake up till the next day.
And how did you feel the next?
The next day I felt phenomenal.
And
Okay.
that's what happens. See, what happened, ozone EBU actually can stimulate you to go into a very deep state of sleep. And that actually going to stimulates a lot of human growth factors to heal itself. That's what we want. Because your body, if you sleep and you know you're sleeping, but if you don't sleep in a deep state of level, that's not going to be really restoring your body properly. So with ozone, and what happened is actually gives a lot of therapeutic value, and then actually can give you a lot of dopamine, serotonin the next day, because everything's regulated well now.
So it's not just clearing, it's not just the ozone itself, it's not just killing off, right? It's also stimulating your own immune system at the cellular level to work
like
better.
Empowering your
It's
whole
empowering
cellular
your own
we're
cell.
supporting your immune system.
Yeah. So the idea that I wanted to at least convey is that if we have these bacteria, viruses, fungal infections, etc., we can kill those off with the EBU for sure.
Yeah.
All right. If we have heavy metals, we can use the EBU to clear out heavy metals, right? So that's a big factor.
Especially with safe method.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. So there's a safe method with this.
Stands for simple access fluid extraction. It doesn't mean that one's safer than
Right.
It's an acronym.
So let's talk about that in a second. So not only can it kill off these things, not only can get rid of mycotoxins and molds and things like that, which are huge these days, by the way. And again, when we talk about cancer, I want to make this point and I know I have before, but if you have too many fuels to the fire, right, too many gasolines, like toxins, chemicals, mycotoxins, infections, etc., your immune system is going to overwork, creating inflammation. The inflammation at the end of the day is going to create oxidative stress to the cells. Those cells are going to become damaged and replicate out of control. That's cancer. So we want modalities that are going to be able to clean up the fuels to the fire.
Yeah.
Hopefully I made that point. I know I'm being redundant, but I think it's so important.
No, for sure.
The next thing that something like the EBOO is going to do, it's going to stimulate your own immune system to work better at the cellular level.
Yeah.
Okay?
It helps your liver produce glutathione naturally and more effectively.
So those are big factors, okay? Let's talk, before we get into the SAFE method, I want to talk now specifically about, because Alan was telling me this, about how this is effective directly for cancer. So we talked about how it's indirectly effective by clearing out pillar 4, which are the causes. But let's talk about cancer at the cellular level and how the EBOO, because you explained it in a way where I went, they have to know this, because it was a little technical and a little nerdy, but that's okay. So you talk, and then I'll kind of summarize it for you.
So what happens usually, the cancer cell grows in a certain area, and they call it tumor hypoxia.
So tumor hypoxia, a cancer cell grows in a certain area.
Yep. And whereby no oxygen travels inside the tumor hypoxia area, and they grow without oxygen.
So
They don't even use it.
Yeah, the cells grow without oxygen.
So this is called anaerobic.
That's called anaerobic,
So,
low oxygen
and
states.
low oxygen states, they just feed in with plasma and they just grow. Plasma means carries a lot of glucose inside and they just keep growing.
Yeah.
So what happened, like in this kind of case, we have enough oxygen, but our immune system is supposed to pick up something abnormal is growing in the system.
Right.
They should be able to kill. But unfortunately, cancer cell pretty much is masking themselves. They could not able to be detected by our
Yeah,
immune system.
so the cancer cells kind of mask themselves.
Yeah.
So our immune system can't identify it
Can
and then
identify.
attack it, right? So not only it's in an anaerobic environment, it's in a low oxygen environment, basically no oxygen, right? Very little. And then it's masking itself from the immune system.
That's right.
Everybody, hopefully that's fair.
So
Here we go.
Eventually what happens when you do ozone, it actually stimulates many pathways. Number one, it actually increases the immune system to detect, to be more sensitive and detect all these cancer cells.
Okay, so the ozone can detect better. It helps our own immune system get stronger, so it detects the cancer cells better. One.
And the second thing is what happened, because remember that it actually stimulates your cells to produce a lot of antioxidants, right?
Right. It also stimulates the cell to produce those antioxidants, right?
So that antioxidants actually will prevent further what we call reactive oxygen species. So that means it's not going to allow more cancer cell to grow, right? So it's reversing the oxidative stress, not triggering into cancer cell. And
So
now
reversing the oxidative stress, not triggering the cancer cell.
that's right.
Yep.
And what happened now? Another thing, this EBOO oxygen started to travel inside the tumor hypoxia area. That is actually going to be big things that will be going to happen when it's traveling inside the oxygen.
So the ozone will go into the
hypoxia
hypoxic area,
area,
the low oxygen cell,
and cancer cell could not able to grow in the oxygen.
it can't thrive in that environment.
So that's what deliverable. I mean, the blood cell will be able to deliver much more efficient of oxygen into that tumor hypoxia area. So whereby all cancer cells started to be, oh, I can't live in this area.
Right.
It's no longer, conducive for me to grow. So this is where we actually started to work on it. And I mean, there is a research done in Spain, Barcelona. They have found that ozone acts an adjuvant. That means it actually helps.
It's what?
It acts an adjuvant. That means it helps on those patients who's doing chemotherapy or radiotherapy, because it actually enhances the chemotherapy. Because remember,
So it enhances. Yeah, it's an adjuvant. It enhances. There's a research study that Alan's alluding to that
Barcelona?
in Barcelona that the EBOO itself and the ozone.
Because the oxygen started to travel in that area, remember, in the tumor hypoxia area. So that's a good pathways for chemo drugs to go in.
So it actually increases the efficacy of the chemo drugs and or radiotherapy.
And the radiotherapy.
Yeah.
And the best part is it also helps to prevent a lot of side effect from chemotherapy, because it's all start from oxidative stress.
Yeah, so the side effects from chemo are from the oxidative stress because it's killing off, right? So there's a lot of cell damage. That cell damage creates a lot of what Alan said, reactive oxygen species.
And that's again another environment for the cancer cell to grow. It's not only killing the cancer cell, it also creates another environment.
That's what you made the point earlier. Let me explain that. So if the chemo itself not only kills the cancer cell, but it creates an environment that's conducive for more cancer growth.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So what the ozone does, or what the EBU does, it reverses that process. So we're still getting cancer killing, but we're also then creating an oxygenated environment so more cancer doesn't grow.
That's right.
Is that fair?
That's right.
Yeah, that's huge.
So if somebody does chemo on Monday, we should allow that chemo to work a little bit.
Yep.
So 3 days, 4 days
even
after,
even 2 days or the 3 days after is really amazing.
3 days is
like in my country, back in Malaysia, we do it the next day. Because it's not gonna reduce the efficacy of chemo, but it's gonna help the patients from getting the side effects. And
so we can do EBU the day after chemo.
It's also much better to do it a few days before because you are actually creating a pathway for chemo drugs to travel.
All right, so this is important, gang.
Yeah,
so, and that's why I love Alan here because he's the guru, right?
No,
so he said
doing it for so
it's
long.
very good to do it a couple days before chemo because you open the pathways to allow the chemo to get into the cell
and also the radiotherapy as well.
And the radiotherapy, which is radiation or what have you. And then a day after is really good to reduce the side effects from chemo. That's huge. Like that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, so did EBU a few days before conventional chemo. Yeah,
Nice.
Laura. So that now that we know, solidified that you're going to be able to create a better environment for the chemo to actually do what we need it to do.
Yep.
But yet when you're using the EBU, you're then not creating an environment. It's a lose-lose if you kill the chemo and create an environment for the cancer cells to thrive. Kill the chemo and then created an environment. Oxygenated environment.
We don't kill the chemo actually.
I mean,
we are killing the cancer cell.
That's what I meant.
And same
kill
time, we don't want to create a positive environment for the cancer cell to grow again.
Yeah, right.
So what we're going to do now, we're going to stimulate the cell again. The cell will be able to produce antioxidants. So there's no oxidative stress there, and the cell will be able to function well.
Yeah, again. let me clarify that. So the chemo is going to kill the cancer cell, but the chemo also will create an environment. For cancer cells, an oxidative environment for cancer cells to thrive.
That's right.
Okay.
If the dosage is too much, and it's still
oxidative stress,
it's going to create more and
it's damage to all cells, right? So then, if we
more an environment for cancer cells to come back.
That's right. So if we introduce the EBU and the ozone therapy, that's within the EBU, what we're going to do is we're going to create more antioxidants an environment. Which is going to, the chemo will still kill the cancer cells, but the environment's going to be less conducive for the cancer cells to thrive. And you're going to respond much better because oxygen,
again, your immune system is it's going to be really activated. And
the immune system is going to be activated and stronger.
We have found few patients have actually said that the circulating tumor cell has gone down tremendously.
Wow. Circulating tumor cell, you repeat that?
Circulating tumor cells, basically after EBU and chemo and other few process, they have found that the amount of circulating tumor cell
reduced
significantly.
That
means it's not moving around in the body.
Yeah,
and chemo agents
don't target circulating tumor cells; they mainly target tumors. And so,
But when
that tumor's dying off, this is going to help definitely clean that process up. Is what it is.
Yeah. So comparatively, right? So again, you talked about we have UBI here, we have 10-pass, and then we got the EBU. So is it safe to say that the EBU is like some of those on steroids? Meaning it packs more of a profound punch?
Or it's more effective because I'm not reozonating the same blood. A lot of your blood is continuous,
Right.
So with 10-pass, I think the downfall is some of the blood I'm ozonating again. Because it's one arm. I'm taking it up, I'm mixing it with ozone, and then we put it back in. Some of that blood is going to get, that I pushed back into, is going to get retreated. This is new blood.
Not only that, then what happened, like because you're going to do a lot of killing. Let's say you have a lot of bacteria, viruses, and
Yeah.
the amount of blood that you have to be treating it. You're going to infuse back again. That's going
Right.
to trigger a lot of healing crisis.
Right. So
Because
that's
it's
why
going to be
you
a
probably
lot
get
for the
more
body to
Herxheimer's
get rid of it.
reactions with
Yeah.
Tenplas.
So
Yeah.
that's going to be a big job for the body to work, and you want the body to work. Now you're creating more stress for the body to fight against all these, toxins
Makes
that
it
you have
a
induced
lot
back again.
tougher. Okay.
So that's
Oh,
why we
Dr.
discover these
Shannon's
things.
on.
All
I saw Dr.
right.
Shannon's name
Hi,
on there.
Dr.
Hi,
Hi,
Dr.
Dr. Shannon.
Shannon.
She's also a guru,
She's
ladies
all-star.
and gentlemen.
She's the all-star.
She's an all-star.
Yeah.
We love
for
her.
sure.
That's why
Um,
we discovered this method, so that actually we don't want to reinfuse back again lots of toxins after you have killed your bacteria.
Is that why the filter? Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
So the filters pretty much absorbs to certain degrees of all these toxins and uremic toxins and bacteria. So, and that actually reduces a lot of job for the body.
Yeah.
We also ozonate at a lower concentration.
That's right.
So
That's
could you
right.
talk about low and high concentrations?
Okay, but it's a common principle understanding that a lot of people think in America the more is merrier, the big is better.
More is better.
Right.
So it's not like that, because based on our experience that we have been working on this system for 23 years, it has to be on certain amount of concentrations.
So real quick, Alan just said they've been working on this system for 23 years, right?
Yep.
So it's been trials, tribulations, refining,
Yep.
right? Manipulating, modifying, etc.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
So
and he's talking about the sorry, Alan, talking about the filtration system and
That's right.
and the
Yeah, the
incorporation
dosage,
of that. Yeah.
and what happened, like the more dosage we give, it's not about that. It's about amount of dosage. It's about amount of blood flow that we give, and the dosage of ozone has to be a certain amount. And the why we're saying it's certain amount, it's not going to be really high. It's going to be slightly low, and at very therapeutic. If you're going to produce a lot of ozone infused into the blood, that's going to trigger a lot of oxidative stress.
Yeah.
This is not going to be good.
So
because
more is not better, is
Yeah.
what Alan's saying
Yeah.
and Tanner was saying, right?
the goal is to induce a very therapeutic amount of oxidative stress for the
Yeah.
cell to be able to pick up that it's getting that signals, and then they started to produce the enzyme to reverse the antioxidant.
Yes.
But if you have exceeded the amount of oxidative stress that's supposed to be given, that's where the cell started to produce a lot of cytokine storm.
Yeah, right.
So in the oxidative stress, what we wanted to induce is, in a scientific term, they call NRF2.
NRF2.
We don't want nuclear transcriptional factor kappa B, that is NFKB. That is
NFKB, right.
that is very high oxidative stress. That's going to trigger a lot of inflammation issues and cytokine storm. That's what we don't want. That's why there is a lot of modalities that people now start doing it. They combine with UV lights. They combine with other methods just to make it more presentable.
Yeah.
That is going to trigger more oxidative stress, and the patient is going to it's defeating the purpose.
Okay.
The goal of this EBU is to treat, not to hurt.
Yeah. So just to recap that. Sorry, gang. There's a therapeutic dose that they've worked on
Yep.
over the years.
Yep.
And if you go too high, you're going to create too much oxidative stress that's going to tax the body and be counterproductive. Is that fair to say?
It defeats the
It
purpose.
defeats the purpose.
Also,
So
because
go
we're
ahead.
treating so much of your blood, we don't want to give you a very high concentration, because that's where that would happen. We
Yeah.
give that, since we're treating so much of your blood. Whereas with UVI, you could
Yeah.
probably use more ozone, because it's a very small amount of your blood being treated.
Right.
It's only about
right.
200 ml.
Yeah, 200.
But if you
where-
combine the
compared to
200
2 to 3
ml
liters.
on this system, it's
It's
going to be
way
too
too
much, and oxidative
Right.
stress is going to be high. You're going to defeat
Right.
the purpose.
So
I
we
did want to point out your
Yeah.
blood looks a lot better on this side
It's getting better,
Joe,
though.
compared to where when we started.
Yeah.
yeah, it's good.
I was thinking about that. I was like, your blood's looking red on this side now.
It's getting clean.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll tell you. The first time I had this treatment,
Okay.
right? So I went home, was tired, went to bed. Literally went to bed. Woke up the next day, probably hadn't felt that good in
What time did you go home?
years.
3 o'clock?
Yeah, I went home at 3 p.m.
3 p.m.?
Slept the entire day. I probably woke up around 8, got a little snack,
Okay.
and then went back to bed. You know, because I
But
was
you weren't
hungry.
feeling well, or were you just
No,
tired?
I was not tired. I was fatigued.
Oh.
I was fatigued. Like not like, oh, I need to go to bed. I'm like, I can't move my arms type of thing. That's
Okay.
how fatigued
You
I
just
was.
were-
But the next day I woke up and it was like, and I was having problems in the gym getting through like 2 sets of something. And the next day it was like everything lifted.
Okay.
Everything lifted. It was that big of a change. and then
Just one time.
and then yeah, and then as life would have it, you get busy, and then it's the effect went down over the course of a couple months. But it just, what it reinforced to me, everybody, is that there's more stuff in my body that I need to work on. And again, going back to, this is just my opinion on this.
No,
I just think that COVID it had a big factor in it, and just from my research, some of those proteins that sit on the cell, that after COVID and or after, they just keep coming back. So I'm gonna get on the protocol. I'll kind of give you my journey, give you my the feedback on my journey, because I'm really curious to see how my body's going to do when I go through this step-by-step process now.
And I'd be very curious on how much ozone actually helps get rid of spike protein.
Well, that's we're working on that. So we're going to do. We found a lab that can test the spike proteins in the body. We're going to start. We're setting up that account.
Nice.
We're going to start doing that. I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to be the guinea pig and see if that's accurate, and then retest it after the EBOO, just to do a personal experiment and an experiment for the clinic and see if this can work.
Yeah. So to add on your experience, Doc, remember what happened? You said after the day that you felt so much good, you can go to the gym. This is what happened. Your cell became very efficient now.
Right.
So the production of energy will be more efficient
at the cellular level.
At the cellular level.
Yeah, and ATP production from the mitochondria. Yep.
And because of the oxygen saturation is better, and the cell is burning better, it's not producing. When you go to gym or when you go for a run, when you do any sports, it will be more efficient. It could not able to produce much lactic acid.
Yeah, right.
So that's going to improve your stamina, and also that's going to your
question.
performance. It's going to be much better.
This is what's happening. So I want to point this out because this is critical. So my workouts, after my workouts, my body's hurting.
Yeah.
And it's never been like that before, right? So Alan was just saying.
Well, usually you'd feel kind of bad after and then good.
But I feel good. Like my workouts used to be where I feel great. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And then I'd get a little tenderness in here and there, but that's a good tenderness. I always thought. Yeah. Well, now it's like, ooh, I get off from the couch. I'm like, oh my gosh, like
you're breaking.
I'm like I'm old, right? Like I feel old, and there's no way I'm letting that happen, right? Yeah. So my point is that Alan was just saying that what happened the day after I had the EBOO is that my cell was basically oxygen rich, right?
That's right.
And when you get into the biochemistry of it, it's not going to produce as much lactic acid and cytokines for that matter. And because of it's more efficient, it's going to have less inflammation. That's what happened, no doubt. And then it started to lose its efficiency.
Yep. It's like a car. You know, when you use your car every day, it needs to be serviced. Same goes to your body. You know, you need to eat healthy. There's a lot of ways to maintain it. Again, these are the things that we suggest for the maintenance for yourself, so you can live longer, quality life.
Yeah. And with that, gang, I'm also going to test all these other things in my body, heavy metals, toxins, non-metal toxins, all that, to see if they're there, so I can also get rid of those. And then I'll do that before and after, just following, kind of practicing what we're preaching.
Yeah, I would suggest, Doc, also you need to do a test on glutathione production, natural glutathione production.
Yeah, glutathione
because
production.
What we have discovered, most of the patients that are doing EBOO cycles, they start to have a better skin conditions. They started to have a really good complexion.
Yeah,
that shows that the body started to produce natural glutathione production.
Yeah.
Right.
So Alan talked about glutathione production to test it before and during and after. And he said what they've noticed with the EBOO, better skin, better just complexion.
Your stem cell production is
stem cell production is going to be better. So you're just going to be making more of these cells more effectively, right?
Dr. Shannon told me a long time ago, ozone will stimulate your body's own stem cell production.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Dr. Shannon's on here, so she can attest to that.
That's right.
Okay, so let's. I want to talk about the SAFE method. So let's do that. So, gang, hopefully you've got a good idea of what the EBOO can do for causes, right, and clearing those out, but also what it does at the cellular level for cancer, right? So it's just a multifaceted, I think, objective from the machine itself. So, all right, let's talk about SAFE. What is it again, Tanner?
SAFE stands for Simple Access Fluid Extraction.
Okay, simple access fluid extraction.
Well,
Okay.
It's another advanced method that what we have invented. This is actually another level 2. We call it level 2 on top of EBU.
Okay, so level 2 on top of the EBU.
Yep, it's in states in America. Center for New Medicine or Center for Cancer is the only company that has been trained to do second level.
So we're the only company
in
in America
America.
that's trained to do the safe method.
So Jenica and I are the only ones
Yep.
in the United States trained on the
That's
safe
awesome.
method.
All right, so
Yeah.
let's talk about that.
It's another advanced method. It's actually designed. What we do, it's designed to filter more of your blood,
Filter
and
more of your
also
blood.
ozonations happens in the same time. It actually pulls a lot of liquid waste out of your system, and also if you have a lot of lipid particles, a lot of protein, spike protein, you name it, whatever it is, it's actually get filtered much better, more efficient.
Am I
it
doing
is-
the safe
No,
protocol?
you're
No,
doing
okay,
the-
regular.
So
okay.
you will be able to see more liquid waste out of the patient. So
Yeah.
that's it's actually the goal, second goal that what we actually invented in this. The second method, safe. So we always suggest the safe to be done on patient has got a lot of water retention.
So water retention.
Patients with has a lot of bacteria and viruses. You know, I mean, we need more filtration.
We've done safe method on patients who have had Lyme disease.
Yep.
And the waste container, I don't know if you can see it in the, that's where it's a different way that we set up the tubing, and to where the plasma will fall into that waste container. And there's always, I mean, it seems like it's more rare to not have things fall into that container where I've had quite a few patients with Lyme disease actually have these white particles
floating.
saturating that whole waste container.
Now, what would that be?
It could be bacteria and viruses that we can't see it. Probably.
Right,
It
Like
just
inflammation's
protein basically.
proteins?
Yeah, a lot of inflammation's protein. And Alzheimer dementia patients will benefit a lot.
Could it also be
Alzheimer's, dementia.
like cholesterol, like lipoproteins,
Could
things
be.
like that as
Could.
well.
So
Okay.
based on what we have tested, according to the waste we discovered from SAFE, we have more heavy metals actually out of the system.
Yeah, right.
More heavy metals, more uremic toxins. You know, this is what we don't want in
So
our body.
when we do the protocol with chelation, I think it's maybe something we should start considering is to actually do safe,
Safe.
and make
Would
that
you
part
agree?
of the protocol.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Make that part of the protocol, because then we'll actually be pulling off more heavy metals through the plasma than instead of just using the filter.
Okay.
Because the
Makes
safe
sense.
has the filter and that
Yep.
excretion part protocol. So
This is the part we Dr. Cowan was on last week doing detox.
Yep.
And so I thought this was a really good, parallel and transition to show this because of how well it does with the detoxification process.
Yep.
And again, supporting the cellular level of that too. So that's pretty cool. So safe method, extraction of excess fluid. Right.
Some people who have congestive heart failure or
CHF.
have swelling. I've had a couple people who have swelling in their ankles actually decrease because we pulled excess fluid from their bloodstream and allowed their body to pull that fluid from their swollen ankles back into their vascular system.
Yeah,
Like
into
gout
the-
patient, it works amazingly well on them.
Gout.
Yeah.
Gout.
yeah.
So it
Okay.
clears uric acid very
That's
well.
right.
Yeah, I've had several patients actually have benefit from SAFE. So,
You will be surprised then, and some patients prefer to do safe than EBU.
yeah,
It's just
I've
a
seen that.
preference,
I
but
have seen
again,
that.
Okay.
Again,
I
it's the
have seen
same modalities, but what happened that SAFE actually does more filtrations.
Yeah,
That's what we want, because if someone is really suffering with a lot of water retention,
yeah, and it filters from top to bottom.
top to bottom.
From the
So
filter.
more areas to filter,
Yeah, so actually more blood gets filtered.
Yeah.
It's a larger filter as well.
larger filter as well. Yeah. So that's what we actually do. Now the best part is we are actually developing the level 3 now. So we are actually working on, most likely by next year, we should be able to release
So
the
another
third level.
method.
Another method, which is going
Wow.
to be advanced method that what we have discovered too.
Awesome.
So it will be out soon, and we will be able to give you a lot of
So you'll
information.
train me first, right?
Oh yeah, he said we're
Yes.
going to be the ones, the first ones to
All right,
train
all right,
on the
good.
third
Yeah.
level method.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
good.
So that's actually
All right.
going to give a lot. I mean, the goal is to treat patients, help many people as much as we can. So that's why we actually keep developing more modalities, so that make sure that people get it, and just reduce the suffering, from people.
Okay.
Yeah, this is awesome, man. This is
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear you tomorrow and tell me how good you slept.
Yeah, exactly. I'll let you know. I don't have as much time to sleep. Last time I went to bed at 3.
That's all right. You'll get
be home by
deeper.
like
You'll go into
9, 10.
deeper sleep
Yeah.
tonight.
If you don't see me tomorrow, you know why.
All right.
Just kidding. Just
We're
kidding.
almost 1 hour now.
All right. So, there's a lot of questions. How do we want to handle this? Because we're already at almost 6:15. So,
Well, I'm going to be taking you off in 3 minutes.
okay.
So we can probably start.
We still have about 5 minutes now.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to pull some up, and we can start? All right. Let's go. Let's see.
So the
How
last
often should I do
Should we start from the
EBU?
bottom to the top?
Yeah, let's go top down. So,
Top
how
down.
often
Okay,
should you
most
do
recent.
EBU if in remission? You know, good question. I think that would depend on my opinion anyway.
That's right.
If we start doing testing on the causes and we start finding infections like Epstein-Barr, we start seeing, bacteria or candida or some of these different, mycotoxins, molds, then we'd have to put a protocol together for those, right? So that's how I like to do it. I like to be specific as far as, hey, let's find X, Y, or Z, let's put a protocol together. But if it's somebody just that's done all that hypothetically and they just do a maintenance, like you do a maintenance on it, right?
That's right. I do maintenance on a monthly basis. But again,
Monthly.
the remissions, it's all about, we need to identify what is actually causing them again.
That's right.
So again, each and everyone has different way of treating, and the amount of treatment needed, it changes.
Yeah, that's
changes based on what they need.
exactly what I was getting at. So the amount of treatments would really depend on what we're trying to achieve.
Right.
Fair? Okay. During the kill phase, when platelet count is high,
Yeah.
can EBU help with this? What can help address high clotting potential, stage 2 bladder on immunotherapy as well? Any so platelet count high, can EBU help with that high clotting potential?
Well, when you look at high clotting potential, we need to know how much it is. We will not be able to explain how it is actually. Clotting rate is important factors that we need to make sure that during the EBU, because we don't want the whole blood to be clotted during the procedures. So that's what we're actually looking at it now. So in that case, we may need to use an extra heparin
Yeah.
to use it that period of time, but then we will have to monitor you before you go back.
Yeah. So you can use extra heparin. There's some things, some ways around it, but getting the more specific data would probably be able to help that.
Yep.
Okay. So how much blood are you taking? Go ahead.
The range is about 1.8 liters to 3 liters of blood. So why it's there's a range, why we cannot give you a specific amount, it's numbers. It's because it depends on what type of gauge needles that we use. It depends on your blood viscosity. It depends on if you have a lot of lipid particles. So it actually changes on
It changes on a
patient's basis.
Yeah. Yeah. Can it hurt the veins?
Of course,
No.
anyone when we prick, it's hurt, but it's not going to hurt
Yeah.
the vein.
But what we're
Yeah.
putting in, it's not going to hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, everybody feels when they get pricked, when they get the stick, it's painful. But after that, it should be okay. It's not gonna hurt the
Some
vein.
people do well. Like it personally doesn't bother me, but some people I know does. But that when you say hurt, you might feel a little pinch.
After that, it's
After
perfectly
that,
fine.
you're pretty good. And no, it doesn't collapse them or hurt
Like
them.
I'm doing on a monthly basis, my veins are still good. Because
So good.
remember, your body's still producing a lot of stem cell, and this EBU stimulates a lot of stem cells, so the recovery would be much better.
Yep.
And it also triggers a lot of nitric oxide productions, so your vein will be more flexible and more agile, actually.
That's awesome. Yeah, it would be more
Depends
flexible.
on who's poking.
Yeah, Tanner's an ace, so you're in good hands there.
Thank you.
Let's see. So comparison, hyperbaric, right, is just it's pressurized, pure oxygen under high pressure.
Yep, it's something like the hyperbaric. You put yourself into an environment that you increase from normal atmosphere to atmosphere 1 to atmosphere 2.
Yep.
So, and also you inhale a lot of oxygen in that chamber, and that actually forces a lot of oxygen to saturate inside your cell, right?
Yeah, so the high pressure forces the oxygen to saturate inside the cell. Right?
And it's a protocol that it was those who have got claustrophobia, they cannot go in. Those have certain conditions that cannot go in. And that's a lot of indications.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at EBU, what happened is completely, it does more than what actually supposed to be. The goal is, when you look at it, the EBU has the negative charge ion.
Yeah.
That is the goal, and that's a magic actually.
Okay.
So the magic gas basically does much better job than hyperbaric. So also there's some cases and some places in Europe, what they do EBU, and then the next day they actually put them into hyperbaric. So that actually what happened, you have sufficient amount of oxygens in your cell with the negative charge also, and that hyperbaric will actually drive in more oxygen into your cellular level. So that helps to heal a lot of cases, without going so many times in hyperbaric. That
Right.
improves.
Right.
They cut short.
It drives it
a
in
lot
even
of
more. Okay, that's good. While getting it done, so somebody asks, yeah, totally normal. Somebody asks how I feel while getting it done. I feel totally normal. Feel good.
We've had some people get a little dizzy. Some people are just queasy when their blood comes out. But I can do some things that'll help kind of reduce that.
Yep. Ultraviolet light with this. Okay, so that's what
Okay.
Alan was saying, that there's a therapeutic range that we want to achieve with ozone. If it gets too much, right, then you're gonna have go ahead, I'll let you.
Well, ultraviolet, it's according to research, it is designed to only ultraviolet. I mean, you have to use, they call UVBI, ultraviolet blood irradiations.
Yeah.
So you have to ultraviolet for 200 ml of blood.
Yeah.
So that actually gives you a therapeutic.
Small doses of ultraviolet light.
That's it.
Could be good. But
now, if you
so
exceeded that 200 ml of blood, it's actually going to defeat the purpose. But again, you have to understand, EBU and ultraviolet does the same principle of work. Okay. But then EBU's dosage and the efficacy is far much better than ultraviolet. Okay. But if you combine these things both, what happened now? One side, you're killing the bacteria and viruses, you induce them with ozone, and you trigger them certain amount of therapeutic oxidative stress. But before it gets back to your system, you put an ultraviolet, that's going to stimulate more stress and more healing.
Yeah,
that's going to create more healing crisis.
Yeah, I know. Some clinics,
like EBO2.
Some clinics do this plus other things, and the reason we brought it up is because we're seeing that, and it's too much.
That's why we're choosing not to put ultraviolet lights on ours.
It's too much.
So it's too much, and
almost counterproductive.
Yep, and it's almost counterproductive. And also the worst part is it's actually going to create a lot of hurts.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that the proteins that already been filtered, then you're going to trigger back again? Some issues happen.
Yeah.
So we have done research, we have done testing on it.
Right, 23 years you figured this out.
We felt that it's actually going to add more issues for patients.
Yep. Okay. So would this help rid a CT scan contrast toxins? No. Oh, sorry. Curious that tourniquet is still on my arm. Yeah.
We keep it on there because it's gonna allow me to pull more blood from his arm. So I have to keep. That's why we wouldn't want to give it. If somebody had lymph nodes removed on one side, we would not want. If Dr. Roney had lymph nodes removed on this side, we would not want to use the tourniquet on this side. We would be using it on this side. So it doesn't matter which arm we use specifically. I look for specific indicators that tell me that would give which vein would be best on outflow and inflow. So that's why we keep this on, so that we are able to pull blood from his vein efficiently. If we take it off, it'll suck his vein flat.
That's why. I asked him to make my arms look bigger, so he's like, I'll take care of you on camera. Let's see. The ice
device FDA cleared.
Oh, is the ice?
It's always will be very challenging to get FDA cleared, because, as you know, ozone therapy, it will not going to be approved by FDA because ozone gas itself, it's considered
gas
to be
itself for medical treatment. FDA does not is not approved.
But I think most of the countries in Europe now are approving ozone therapy as another modalities that they can treat patients.
Yeah.
So Europe is moving forward.
I believe this is like the #1, or ozone therapies are used
all over
Germany,
Europe.
Germany as a first-line treatment for like
Italy,
Absolutely.
like that. So,
well, it's funny because I was telling Alan about my knee issue, and he said, "Hey, you could put some ozone, inject ozone in there." You know,
it's good, though. The reason why when you inject the ozone, it actually stimulates a certain amount of oxidative stress that area.
Yeah, but
that encourages V cell to go down.
Yeah, that's right.
And repair it.
Yeah. True. All right, so
CT scan contrast and toxins.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, for sure.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
It'll be a very expensive way of doing it.
Yeah, exactly. But with CT, we like to use like SOD.
Gallium, right?
We used to use superoxide dismutase. We like to use C60.
C60. But what about the chelation? Chelation will help get rid of gadolinium.
Yeah.
So if you did like a package with this and chelation, I think that would definitely help.
Yeah, I mean sauna too. Sauna and Epsom salt baths and things like that, I think, are a good strategy with that too. Yeah. Let's see. What is the difference of Ibu Ozone IV with UBI? I think you just did that one.
You keep going to the
Rituxan infusion every 6 months for autoimmune.
Exactly.
Will the Ibu interfere with Rituxan?
Well, to our experience, doctor, 6 months for a start, we need to do a cycle, proper cycle. We need to modulate the immune system. Actually, if you don't modulate the immune system, you still want to go for 6 months, it's still going to come back. So autoimmune, there is various reasons behind of autoimmune. It can be a virus, can be leaky guts, or it can be inflammation.
It's the fuels to the fire. The same things that cause autoimmune are the same things that.
So based on our experience with the 2 cycle of Ibu and chelations, with combination with some IV therapy, you will be able to see significant results on autoimmune. Again, the amount and how many times you do, it all depends on what.
So maybe if they're doing Rituxan every 6 months, they should.
After that 6 months maintenance,
do this in between.
Yep.
It wouldn't affect.
I would say
not
6 months, maybe 3 months. Yeah.
3 months, so in between.
Just a maintenance, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, if they're getting Rituxan every 6 months.
Yep.
Do it in between.
You still eating?
3 months. Okay. What is the difference in Ibu or Ozone IV with UBI?
We talked about that one. Yep.
Okay.
Gauge.
What gauge? Dr. Roney has 18 gauge needles in his arms today.
So we can circulate more blood. That's the goal. The more blood we can circulate, the more ozonation process will take place.
Yeah. So we can use 20 gauge though. If your veins are not as large, we can go a little smaller.
Ozone insufflation.
Ozone insufflation.
Yeah.
That's completely different ball game. That you can you can do that at home actually.
You can.
There's a lot of home-based ozone generators available.
Ozone generator,
so
right?
it's also, I mean, the effective wise, it's also quite good. And some patients are doing it for, I mean, just for the maintenance purpose and the home setup, it's fine. Yeah. But this is totally different now. This is like a medical setup. So,
yeah. So ozone insufflation would be like rectal ozone or
vagina
ozone, something like that.
Yeah. All right.
How many Ibu treatments does a patient typically need for Lyme or viruses?
Yeah.
Well, it's a very good question. So it all depends how severe you are.
Co-infections,
and co-infections, how you are actually addressing the root cause of the problem.
Yeah.
And to our experience, 2 cycles, actually you can start to see a good result. And after that, we need to make sure that other underlying problem need to be cared.
Well, it's using this along with other modalities for Lyme and things like that, but it's no different than cancer. We're using it for we're using this as one modality in a list of modalities to achieve a goal. So CLL, I mean, I mean, listen, you know what we see, just like with every cancer.
We have done it on patients.
Yeah, and why what I'm about to get to is that CLL. Remember, fuel and fire. Something typically is stimulating the immune system to overreact and dysregulate. And that, again, that could be viruses, it could be pathogens, it could be, you know, toxins and chemicals. And any of those need to be removed. And that's what we talk about in our 4-pillar plan. So yes, for any of these cancers, doing something like Ibu to get rid of those fuels to the fire are significant. So, okay, gang, we are running out of time. Don't want to hold you too long. We're going to have to, as Shep always does, we get the answers out. We'll email them out to you, and we'll definitely get that done for you. So I want to thank Alan for being here. Much appreciated. Yeah, he's a guru, so we trust him immensely. And then Tanner, I thank Tanner. Tanner's one of our, you know, he's a good, if you know Tanner and you've been with Tanner, great guy, great heart, great nurse. And, you know, definitely an asset to being here for sure. So I want to thank you for being here as well. And then, so gang, we'll see you in a couple weeks. Questions, we'll get answers out to you. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you being here. If you need anything, let us know, and we'll be happy to help you anytime. Okay? Have a great couple weeks, gang. Be good. Bye-bye.
Bye.